This is going to be a fun episode of the Elite Recruiter Podcast. I have my special guest, David Stephen Patterson, aka DSP. We're going to talk about all things on really just moving recruiting to the next century. DSP is literally probably one of the only recruiter that I've met that is just so ahead of the game when it comes to artificial intelligence. And I know everybody's talking about prompts and like write this, write that. He's putting together an entire systems to help you, one, win new business, get more clients, and find the right candidates. So, and real quick, I love having DSP on here because when I was many years ago looking at making the jump from being an internal recruiter to having my own search firm, DSP is actually one of the few people that behind the scenes with his content, with his training, with some of his programs that actually helped me make that successful jump. And I am grateful for the lifestyle freedom that I have today because of DSP. So DSP, welcome to the podcast.
Cheers. Thank you. Glad to be on here this is my third time, I think.
Third time,
Fourth
third
time?
time.
Third time. Man, third time's the charm. This is pretty cool.
So real quick, I know we typically ask the question of like how you got in the recruiting space, but for time's sake, because I know we got a lot to cover, if you go back to episode 38, he breaks down how he got into the space, how he got into recruiting, how he got his own search firm, the ups and downs, and also talking about the lessons that he learned weathering recessions. So definitely go check out episode 38. But now, all right, the AI game. Everybody's talking about AI. It is the hottest topic when it comes to recruiting. I feel like, it's, playing with Chat GPT is fun, but how are you taking things to this next level?
Well, I knew we would be talking about AI on this session, which is why I wore my glasses, my nerd glasses here. So, anyway, when I put these on, I always feel like 10% smarter. But anyway, yeah. So far the AI game, it's I will tell you. So I've been a big proponent as far as for agency recruiters to help build their brands and their online presence because the more that you do that, the more you get recognized, the more you get inbound leads, and also to make sure outbound prospecting a lot more effective. And we can certainly talk about that. Now, I will say I don't necessarily get into the AI stuff when it comes into say finding candidates because that's a whole other area that I haven't really dove much into. Specifically for me, it's about content creation. What I found is that for recruiters, when they're trying to brand themselves, right? When trying to create articles and build their authority and create LinkedIn posts and gain visibility, as well as even just writing email copy that gets that resonates and that gets replies, because that's getting harder and harder to do every day as much more white noise just increases in the market. And what I found is that most recruiters just don't, either they don't have the time, or they don't have the writing chops, or they're so busy doing everything else. Because as an agency recruiter, especially if you're independent, you're doing everything, and it's a really really tough job. And add content on top of that makes it even more difficult. So using AI to write content, most content that it creates is generally kind of bland, and so what we work on, and what I've been working on here a lot, is creating content that really resonates in your style and your voice. And one thing that really led me there was, I've been so you're on my email list, and
Yep.
you've been on my email list for a long time. You're one of my OGs, so thank you for that. But I have it's known as a very spicy email list. I email my list almost every day. It gets kind of political. I tell jokes. It gets kind of dirty. But I also try to find a lot of great content. And one of the things that really resonates with people that are on the list, and the reason why I get such a high open rate and I don't get very many unsubscribes, is because it's entertaining. And people generally read because they like the reading, and I have a developed a certain style around it. Now, I say that because when AI was first coming out in terms of generating content, I poo-pooed it for a long time. I would pick up occasionally like an AppSumo tool for AI, or I tried Jasper, and it was just okay, but it was never in my style. I would never in a million years put my name on it. And then I actually learned how to create AI personas from a buddy of mine back in January, and it really just blew my mind. The way that I was able to create AI personas that wrote in my style, which was scary good, and to be able to not only do that, but also to create it to help it or to train it to write in other types of style, like email style, social media styles, blog articles, some stuff that's more professional. Anyway, so I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but I ended up having to eat my own words because I remember in January I sent out to my list a long diatribe about how AI copy sucks, and then it was a week after that, my buddy taught me how to make an AI persona, and it just completely changed my perspective on it. So anyway, I can go on and on about it, but it's been a pretty amazing journey for me the last few months working with it.
Well, I know one of the things that you've taught about being important is learning how to copyright. Now, with the rise of AI, is that still an important thing?
Yeah, it's actually even more important now. See, one of the issues that people don't think about when it comes to our business is that jobs are hard to come by right now, right? Everybody's feeling it. I mean, every client I have, everybody I talk to, every recruiter out there is feeling it. And if you're not feeling it, then you're pretty lucky. But they're feeling it, right? And so, what do we all learn in recruiting 101 when the our job board or the whiteboard starts to look light on jobs? We hit the phones, start emailing, start hitting folks up on LinkedIn. Well, now you have LinkedIn automations. Say everybody's using LinkedIn automation, and very few people were using it 6, 7 years ago. Now everybody's using it. Everybody's using LinkedIn automation to a certain extent. And now everybody's pushing out content, right? So now you have AI that's pushing out tons of content. So what happens is everybody's out there are grabbing these really generic email templates from trainers, right? And just very generic. Hi, Bob. This is so and so with XYZ Search, and we've recently come across a great pool of candidates I think could be a fantastic fit for your company. Won't it be a good time to connect to see if that would if it would be matched to, or won't it be a good time to connect to see if it makes sense to work together? Like very generic, like a message that sounds decent, but when a prospect is getting that 5, 10, 20, 25 times a day, it's just so much white noise, and everybody's sending stuff like that. Everybody is you know sending linked automations. Everybody's, and of course, there are people are calling, and so now you have AI out of the mix. So now AI with recruiters are now pushing out tons of generic content. You have a lot of white noise, and so I think it's harder now. But I also think that it's also makes it much more important to be noticed because you have to figure out a way to get past that white noise, and you have to be more polarizing. You have to be more incisive. You have to have more visceral content that resonates in the bones of the people that read it. Right. For example, and this isn't really an example about necessarily content necessarily, but just think about like the general, like the type of emotions we're trying to hit in terms of our audience, right? So I work with agency recruiters, and for agency recruiters, I know y'all get a lot of pitches on a daily basis from lead gen specialists who purport to be able to bring you inbound leads on demand, pipe and hot leads, and blah 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 blah. Right
I
now,
think I get like 10 of those a day.
exactly. And an email copy, somebody could say that we can help you end the feast of famine or bring in prospects and leads, etc. And that's fine. That's decent content. But if I mention to you, or maybe in my email copy or something, I say, look, you know the feeling that you get when you drive home every day on the commute home, and you have that sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach, thinking, man, today might be the day that my wife or my husband is going to sit me down at the dinner table and say, honey, maybe it's about time you found a real job. I help you avoid the conversation. Now, granted, I'm not specifically saying what I do, but what I'm doing is I'm hitting that emotional nerve inside of you. I'm showing you that I understand, I get it because I've been there, and people that have experienced that, they know what that feels like. And I think the more we can create content like that that connects to their audience, the more we're going to be noticed. I think creating really incisive content is so important nowadays. Be noticed.
Well, I don't know if you saw the notice. I don't know if you're on TikTok at all, but TikTok just actually sent a notice to all their creators with over 100,000 subscribers that the future of the algorithm is going to be about like enticing emotion with a storytelling. And I can guarantee you that, since TikTok said that out, I feel like LinkedIn's going to be next.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure because yeah, that's I mean that's what gets people to pay attention, even an email copy. In fact, let me bring up the Mel Gibson rule because it's something that I teach in a lot of my training when it comes to writing content. And so there was a an interview of Mel Gibson that he did many years ago. And for those who know Mel Gibson, he's not just the Road Warrior, he's not just Mad Max, but he's an amazing director. I mean, he created Apocalypto, Braveheart, The Patriot, which is a way underrated movie, and a ton of others. Right, so he's an amazing director. And one thing that he said about movies and why and how his stories resonate, he said it comes down to the three E's. He said it's entertainment, education, and elevation. If you want, if you need to be able to entertain first, because if you don't entertain, no matter how much value you're putting out there, if you're not entertaining and interesting, they're just not going to pay attention because there's a ton of value out there. Everybody has value, right? You have to entertain, but you have to educate. You have to educate them, and then thirdly, you have to elevate their thinking. If you can elevate their thinking, right, that's how they truly remember you. And so when you look at your content or your content strategy as a recruiter, always want to be thinking about, am I entertaining, am I educating, and more importantly than anything else, am I elevating their thinking?
Yeah, that's definitely great advice. And for people that are looking at just getting into the content game, why is it so important right now to like get content out there?
Yeah, so there's a misconception when it comes to content, and there is so you got the folks doing content, and they preach about inbound marketing, inbound leads on demand, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't really, it doesn't. Um, but it sounds sexy, right? And it sounds a lot easier than banging out 100 cold calls per day. On the other hand, you also have folks that are that the old school guys that just say, dude, just get on the phone, get on the phone, get on the phone. And I hear you, that also works as well, but there's kind of an upper limit to what you can do with that, right? And so I think the way I look at it is not to call it hunting versus farming, right? Hunting is your outbound, farming is your inbound. Farming takes a long time to cultivate. It's a long game. Hunting's your short game. What I found is that if you start pushing out content on LinkedIn or anywhere else where your audience is at, LinkedIn obviously is the number one place. Could be Facebook, could be probably not TikTok for most of our audience because our clients are probably older, but the places where they're at, right? And you start pushing out content that again entertains, educates, and elevates. And they start remembering your name. What's going to happen when you call them or when you email them? They're much more likely to reply. And so I'm a big believer that if you make sure that you are hitting all the outbound channels, LinkedIn, email, phone, I mean, you're still cold calling, all that, right? That there's still a great place for that. And they see consistently on LinkedIn with great content or articles, etc. They're much more likely to want to do business with you. And so the example I usually give is with my own business. So when I was recruiting for many years, I've been doing this since '97, and I wasn't really well known in the recruiting industry because at the time there wasn't really like an online space for recruiters. When I became a trainer and when I started moving into that direction, and I started the Facebook group that we have, the Headhunter Executive Recruiter Community. Join if you're not a member. Um, um, the recruiters started joining that, right? And now we have close to 13,000 members, search firm owners, independent recruiters, like largely agency based. So now I've got that group and people are marinating there. They see my content all the time. LinkedIn, people see my content. A lot of people have downloaded my Lighthouse Method sales and marketing guide. They've seen my videos. They just know my name. So now, when I've got two sales reps that do outbound for me, right? When they do outbound for me, our open rates are crazy high. Our reply rates are crazy high. I get people who get them on sales calls with me that they've seen my content, they've been in my group, they've seen me for years, but they never got off their butt to work with me until we reached out and we pinged them and they book a call because they ignore everybody else, but they reply to us. And when we get on the phone or a Zoom call, I don't have to do all the backflips and try to establish my credibility. They knew who I am. It's just a matter of, okay, let's see if it makes sense to work together. And one of the really great things in our world is that if you could do the same thing in your niche and get the people in your niche to know you and to appreciate what you do, maybe you've elevated their thinking, maybe you've helped them out, some you provided value. The more you do that, the more likely they are to respond to you and to want to do business with you. It's kind of like it's like in recruiting, for example, right? If you have a client that gives you a job order or search assignment, and we always want the client that people know about, that has an exciting opportunity, that we don't have to explain what like what they do. That they're maybe they're known in the industry. It makes it a lot easier to recruit for that company, is it not? Same thing applies with us. If we're known, then it makes it a lot easier for us to get business. We just have to go outbound to do it. But at the end of the day, that's why I think that content plays a role, and people tend to think it's kind of an either or. It's either just outbound or either just inbound. It's not. They're just two sides of the same coin. And I'll leave you with this one little more like as example. People have heard about that rule where it takes 8 to 12 touches to get in front of a prospect, right? Who knows what that number really is, but it's a good rule of thumb. People always think it's like it's in a linear sequence, right? I email the LinkedIn and phone, then email the LinkedIn phone, and eventually on the 8th or the 12th, over the course of months, they finally take my call. It's not that out. It's actually a messy journey that the prospect takes, because they may see an article from me here, a social media ad over here, a LinkedIn post over here, an email over here, a voicemail this day, another post over here. They see a banner ad over here, another email from me the other day, and eventually they start to you get this mind share in their heads. And content plays a really, really big piece in that. So that's why I think that if you want to really do well in this space, and to succeed in this new world, you have to be willing to start doing content. And for those folks who just don't have the ability, or just don't have the knack for it, or don't know what to do, or don't have the time, AI can help you. So that's my view on it.
So going back to AI, and actually real quick, talking about content game, you had like a content club, like what was it, like 3 years ago, where we all like posted like stuff on LinkedIn and went and commented, and you really highlighted during the time to go write articles. And like if you want a good laugh, one of those articles that I wrote during the timeline still gets me leads from LinkedIn. Like just because I think it took me like 10 hours to write that, but
Mhm.
and this is way
Yeah,
before the days of like AI where you can like speed things up. But yeah, quality stuff matters. All
it
right.
does. And here's the thing too, like your prospects actually do read these things. So I remember back in 2018, I want to say maybe 2019. So when I started training, I was still doing both. I was still doing the search firm and recruiting in the SAP space, which is my niche. And I was training, and I hadn't fully transitioned over yet like I have now. So at the time, I was still kind of doing both. And I had this article out there about the state of the SAP marketplace, or the state of the SAP talent marketplace, or something like that. And I got an email, or sorry, a LinkedIn message from the head of, it was HCL Axons, HCL Axons North American SAP group, and they had something like 40 or some position they were hiring for, and he had emailed, or sorry, he sent me a LinkedIn message, excuse me, about that article, about how it really resonated, and he agreed with it. He talked about some of the challenges and da 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 da. And he set me up with a meeting with his head of TA for North America. Ended up being like a big boon for me that year, just that one piece of article. And granted, that's not the norm. Usually, people will read it, but they won't engage necessarily. But again, they kind of remember who you are. But yeah, I mean, powerful content does even lead to inbound leads. You can't depend on them, but again, your prospects do read your content if it's good. But if it's your typical, top 7 hiring mistakes, everybody reads that, or that there's a ton of it out there. They've seen a ton of it. It doesn't resonate. You gotta bring something like unique and a unique perspective on it for it to get
Awesome.
noticed.
So I love Chat GPT. I love Taplio. I love all these different like AI tools that are out there to help me like actually do my job better. But you started talking about AI personas. First of all, what the hell is that?
Oh yeah, so this is I'm hedging my bets in case Skynet ever becomes sentient. So I for one support our future AI overlords. Just want to make sure I get that clear and get that out there. Okay. Anyway, that's it. But all joking aside, so what I was, and actually I was taught this here about, this what really changed my mind about AI, about AI content, was you can train an AI persona to, in essence, write as you. So you can actually, so when people use AI, the reason why they get frustrated with it and the content is so bland is because oops, my camera just, oh, there we go. Sorry, my camera just went. The reason why they get frustrated or the content is so bland is because they don't train it. They just say, write me an article on blank, or write me a social media post on blank, and it spits out just regular content. You need to be able to train it to write in your voice. Now, whether it's in your voice or an influencer that you admire, you could actually can have it write in your voice, your lexical style, your the syntax that you normally use. It gets really detailed. So if you train it in your voice, and you also train it in different copywriting styles. For example, you can train, for me, I train AI personas on, say, blog writing. You can train AI to create blogs. You can train AI to create social media posts. You can train AI to create email. You can train AI to review contracts. I mean, anything that comes down to either analyzing written information or creating written information, that's where AI really excels in my book. But you have to be able to train that effectively.
Okay. And I know that you have a current program where you're actually, are you doing it for search firms? Can you explain that real
Yep,
quick?
only for recruiters. So if you're not a recruiter, not a search firm, then I can't help you because I'm super specialized in just that. But yeah, we actually gave an example of how you can do it. So the way I want to think about it is, okay, first you want to train it in your writing style. So if you have a writing style, great, you can train in that. If not, go pick an influence that you like, that you admire, and you can train it in that writing style. And then over the course of time, you can kind of modify it. But that's just the first part. But then you have to train it on your company. Train it on your company, what you provide, what you offer, what makes you different. But then you also train it on your audience. And in our world, it's kind of unique in that we don't sell a service to one audience. We have two audiences. We have clients and candidates, and they each have different pain points. They each have different desires. They have different gaps of knowledge, different fears, different nightmare scenarios, etc. So the more that you can feed it that information, the better. So you want to research your audience, find out what makes them tick, and put that in there. And from there, once you do that, then you can train on a particular style of writing. So there's certain block styles. Like you can have listicles, you can have thought leadership articles, you can have how-tos, etc. But there's also just within blogs, different styles. You can have different sort of LinkedIn or social media posts. Whether it be thought leader LinkedIn posts, or storytelling LinkedIn posts, myth busting LinkedIn posts. You also have things that are optimized for Twitter, Facebook, any other sort of platform out there. And so what you want to do is you want to train it on first the style, your voice, then train it on your company, then train it on your audience, and then train it on the specific role it's going to have. Like, what is it going to produce for you? Once you do that, then you can actually start creating content, and then from there it's just a matter of fine tuning it, because sometimes AI forgets, or sometimes AI kind of drifts, and so you have to be able to have the tools necessary to kind of bring it back to where it needs to be. So think of it in a lot of ways. AI or ChatGPT is a lot like somebody who is extremely intelligent who has amnesia. And so you have to teach it who it is, right? And then it kind of forgets, and you have to move it back. But it's a genius, and so it's almost like you have to have the range. So you're on a horse in essence. You have to kind of gently nudge it to where it needs to be, and it takes a little bit of practice. But once you get it, you can create. So as an example, I had. In our promotion for AI Persona Genesis, which is the new program that we just started, where we actually will train an AI persona, or several AI personas for you, to write blogs, LinkedIn posts, email copy, website copy, etc. You can actually take this these AI personas, and in about a couple hours, you can get 4 or 5 of these AI personas fully trained on your style, on your market. And once you do that, and again, I use as an example in my promotional email copy that I sent out earlier in the week. I wrote a 2,200 word blog about the rise of AI and its effect on SAP recruitment. And then I wrote 7 LinkedIn posts specific to the SAP industry, a couple for candidates and a couple for clients, so about 7 posts in total, All that time, it took me about maybe 15, 20 minutes. And they were really high quality posts and it was a really high quality blog that you can use as is. In 20 minutes, all done, which is
Wow.
amazing. That would have taken hours normally.
I can't tell you how many mornings over the years I've gotten up early just to like work on writing. One, because I suck at writing, but I need to get better. But just trying to do stuff like that in 15, 20 minutes, the
Oh yeah,
machine.
it's amazing. But wait, there's more. so, so on top of that, one thing we've been experimenting with here lately, kind of my newest experiment with this is, uh, uh, if you're let's say an IT recruiter right now, and right now tech recruiting, IT recruiting is really crowded. It's a lot of things are drying up, and it's if you're in tech, it's kind of tough for a lot of you. So let's say you have a client that you have a contract with, and you normally recruit tech for them, but they're just not hiring or whatever it is, and but you know that they have an accounting and finance position open, or they have maybe a job in audit or whatever it is. So something that you would normally say, I don't do that because you only work in tech. Um, if you're to have a contract with them and they're willing to give you the order, I mean, it's not ideal, but if you could take an accounting and finance job that you would not normally work on, but they're willing to give to you, and you don't know what to ask, you don't know, like, et cetera, take that job description, you feed it in, and feed that in and feed in the career section for that company. It'll spit you back out of a great employer value proposition, a recruiting campaign, and screening questions. Ask these 5 to 10 questions, and here are all the answers they have to give you. So you can literally recruit confidently and knowledgeably about whatever field that you want to recruit in, and you do that all in the course of maybe 15, 20 minutes, which
I
is
love
which is
that.
amazing. So yeah,
And
so
your
you can.
program sets that up for the recruiters, right?
Oh yeah, yep, it does. It does. And
I'll
and the
have the
other
link
thing
for
too
that
is
in the
that
show notes.
well, and one thing I will say too is that for my AI persona genesis promotion that I just started, um, I had AI write the entire promotion. So the AI wrote my camera's going again. My AI, there we go. My AI wrote my sales page. It wrote my all my email copy. It wrote everything. 90% of it was written by AI, just as a demonstration proof of concept. And to be honest with you, it's one of the best sales pages I've ever created. So, it even
I
created the script for the video that's on the page. On top of that, so
That's awesome.
yeah,
Before we jump into our quick fire questions, is there anything else that you want to chat about with AI and recruiting?
yeah. One area that I'm really getting into, and this isn't something that I'm necessarily putting out there as like a product or anything, but something that's really really interesting that I think that a lot of recruiters can get a lot of value out of, especially once you like to expand their knowledge. So one of the tools I've been really excited about is called MEM AI. So it's MEM.ai. So for a lot of you folks who are into productivity, you guys have heard about things like a second brain, where basically you take the knowledge that you have or knowledge that you get from courses, YouTube videos, books that you read, etc., notes, and then putting it into a maybe a knowledge management tool like Evernote or Notion or Nimbus is
Uh,
the one I used to use. But the only problem with those is that granted you put all the notes in there, but just because you have a note in there or have your knowledge in there, it's not easily accessed, and it's very hard to draw connections in between different pieces of knowledge, which is how you spark creativity. So Mem again, I don't have anything to do with them. I'm not promoting them, but um, what I've been working on with them is that you can it's basically a note taking software, kind of like Evernote, but the difference is it's all AI. There's no folders. You just use tags, but you put all your knowledge in there, and what will happen is it has a little chatbot in the system, and you can go ask it questions based on your knowledge. So you can take your podcast notes, put them in there. YouTube notes, put them in there. Course notes from course you take, put them in there. Any other notes, anything and all you can put in there. You can actually upload entire books in there, and then go ask questions about the knowledge contained within the book, and then it'll
That's
answer it.
wild.
And what's even more interesting is you can take disparate books. You can take a book on finance and a book on entrepreneurship, load them both in there, and ask a question. It'll pull knowledge from both areas and put them together into new and interesting ideas based on all the different disparate pieces of knowledge that you have in that system. It's really amazing. So that's one area that I'm going to get into quite a bit. So for anybody who's interested in productivity, knowledge management, check out mem.ai.
I'll definitely put that in the show notes also. All right, DSP, we're moving to the quick fire questions.
All right.
What advice would you give to a brand new recruiter that's actually just starting out in 2023?
Talk to leaders. So right now, leaders in the industry are a little bit freaked out. A lot of them probably worried about getting laid off or what their career prospects are. And so now is a better time than any time else to reach out because you're a headhunter. You can help them with their own careers. You can help them get to their next level. You can help them find their next opportunity. Right? It's a big carrot you can wave for another face that no one else can really do. Right? If you sell software, you can't do that. Um, use that angle. Talk to as many leaders as you can to build the connections, to build relations, but also to get knowledge of your market, find out what's going on, find out who's hiring, who's not, what the pain points are, et cetera. Right now, it's a better time than ever to start booking those sorts of calls. So I think get on the phone, start talking to leaders ASAP. Number one thing you do.
Awesome. Same question, but for recruiters that have been in the game for a while, what advice would you give to them to win in 2023?
Same advice.
Awesome.
Next advice. Yep. Next advice.
I personally know the answer to this next question, but I'm going to ask it again. Is there a book that has had a huge impact on your career?
Yes. The one you're thinking of, is it the War of Art?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. The War of Art. My number one self-help book. I read it every 6 months, like clockwork. I've given out probably dozens of copies at this point to friends and family. It's the War of Art, and I think it's a book that is. I describe it as a book that will grab you by the throat and kick you in the you know what's. You know what I mean? It's going to make you get to work. It's very motivating. It's not a lot of fluff. It's not a lot of woo woo. It's just very down and dirty. How to get to work and how to, in essence, it's if I were to encapsulate it in a sentence, it shows you how to beat your inner demon that keeps you from doing your best work. So, War of Art.
Awesome. With everything that you know now, the experiences you've gone through, the knowledge that you know, if you can go back and talk to yourself at the beginning of your recruiting career, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, gosh. I would talk to myself. Well, I would. Um, that's a good question. I think it would come down to learning more about sales and marketing originally. So when I first started, I did very well in the business when I first started, but it came down to me just outworking the market. I was doing 100, 150 calls per day, get lots of phone time. If you guys remember what phone time is, I was getting lots of phone time, top of the office in terms of my phone time hours, and I just outworked the market. I was kind of like a blunt instrument, just hammering away. And then it wasn't until later on in my career I learned a lot of the finer nuances of sales and marketing and why people buy. And then once I learned that, everything just got easier. So I think the more people can understand why people buy, the how you can influence, how you can persuade, the more you can learn there, the better off. So I think I would go back and teach myself those things. I think I would have had a much easier time early on if I had learned those early.
Awesome. Well, DSP, before I let you go, is there anything else you want to share with the listeners?
Uh, well, I guess the only thing I can think of is if anybody's interested in the AI Persona program, we'll leave the link in the show notes. And also, if you're interested in learning any sort of sales and marketing or just really anything about agency recruitment, one of the best places you can go is the Headhunter and Executive Career Community Facebook group on Facebook. It's called the Herc, and I put a lot of training in there, free training. But there's also a lot of great recruiters, a lot of veterans in there that are willing to give of their time and give advice and to help other newbies in the space. So apart from anything else, whether you use me, whether you give me money or not, I don't care. Join the group; you'll get a ton of value out of it.
I'll just say there's plenty of 500 to over $1 million billers in that group just sitting there happily sharing advice constantly
Oh
for
yeah.
free.
Oh, it's huge, huge, huge for sure.
Well, DSP, thank you for joining the podcast. And for the listeners, until next time.
Hey, thank you very